Hi everyone, I'm here to share some information with you about a famous 20th century psychologist and psychoanalyst. His name was Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson was born and raised in Frankfurt, Germany in 1902. He died in Boston, Massachusetts in 1994. He was raised by his mother and stepfather. He unfortunately never was able to meet his biological father, and from an early age, he felt like his stepfather treated him very differently, and because of that, it caused Mr. Erikson to really think about his his own identity and what type of person he was and how he wanted to be looked at. As a young man, Mr. Erikson decided that he wanted to become a psychoanalyst. So he enrolled in the Vienna Psychoanalytic Institute. And while doing my research, I was surprised to find out that Mr. Erikson never received a diploma, but in fact only a license. So that was a little bit, because you think about how successful this man was, and I was surprised that he didn't ever receive a diploma. Anyways, in 1930, he married a dancer, and her name was Joan Searson. They fled Germany in 1939 with their family because of the Nazi uprising. They immigrated to the United States and settled down in Boston, Massachusetts. And an interesting fact about Mr. Erikson, another one while doing the research, he was the first man to ever practice child psychoanalysis in the entire Boston area. Up until then, it had only been females. So, Mr. Erikson was famous for his development of the 8 stages of psychosocial development. During each of these stages, a person experiences psychosocial crises, both positive and negative. And it is has a huge outcome for their personality development. Stage one is trust versus mistrust. Erikson says this usually happens between 0 to 1.5 years old. During this stage, this is when an infant is unable to care for themselves. Then they look for a parent or a caregiver to um, to take care of them. And if they're taken care of in a calm and loving and with consistency, the child will develop trust. And if not, if there is no consistency and they do not feel that love, the child will learn to mistrust. Um, the second stage is autonomy versus shame, and this happens between the ages of 1.5 to 3. Children in this stage are encouraged and supported, and they to enhance their skills and to develop a sense of independency. Um, if they feel inadequate or if they feel like they are not given the opportunity, the child will become overly dependent on a parent or a caregiver and can really lack um, self-esteem within themselves, and just can feel, like a sense of shame or doubt in their own abilities and what they can do. The third stage is initiative versus guilt. This happens, it really is how Erikson has defined the purpose stage. This happens between the ages of 3 to 5, and during this time, the child is beginning to go to school. They are beginning to ask lots of questions because they want to learn and want to know everything that is going on around them. And if the child feels supported and the answers are given in a loving manner by their parents, the child um, will grow and have a sense of, belief in themselves and what they know. If a child does not have that support from a family member or another adult, or if they're made to feel like their questions are trivial and it's just nothing but a problem, the child will feel guilty and will feel inadequate. Um, the next stage is 4, and it's where Erickson described industry versus inferiority. And this is really the stage of competency, and this usually happens between 5 to 12 years old. At this stage, the child is becoming majorly aware of their self esteem. Their body starts to change, and they feel because of the changes with the hormones and everything else that's going around, the child will either grow and their self-esteem will thrive, or if not, say if you're not the jock on the football team, you're not going to feel that sense and can cause a lot of depression and issues down the road with in high school and later on in life. Stage 5, identity versus role confusion, usually happens between the ages of 12 to 18. And again, this is where the child is trying to show some more independence. They're testing their beliefs, their personal values, their goals. Um, People that feel uncomfortable at this age in their body um, may feel, that they can't adapt, that it is impossible to change, and the success will lead to virtue of fidelity. Role confusions can also play a big part, and this is also when teenagers at this stage may use other vices, as far as drugs or alcohol, to help numb um, the dislike that they have, the feelings that they have for themselves. Stage 6 is intimacy versus isolation, and this happens between an adult's, usually between the ages of 18 and 40. And people will begin to develop long-term relationships at this point. Families are developed, children come into the picture. A lot of growth happens at this stage. And if a person is not willing to initiate um, a connection with someone, it will often lead to isolation and loneliness. And if a person is successful, obviously they will feel love. They will have achieved that intimacy, instead of the isolation. Stage 7 is generativity and stagnation. And this usually is when a person is between the ages of 40 to 65. And this is pretty much when people are trying to have made their mark on the world, or still trying to make their mark on the world. Um, they people want to feel as a whole that they have contributed to society and they are successful. Um, if they don't feel that they are being successful, or if they don't feel that they're making a difference, um, they may be, disconnect themselves and feel uninvolved and just not be willing to put forth their best effort. The last stage is stage 8, which is ego, integrity versus despair wisdom, and this is when Erickson said can happen anywhere between 65 plus, until death. And during this time, this is when we look back on the successes and on the changes that we have gone through in our lives, and can initially develop an integrity to see if we've been a success. If we feel unproductive, in our life, a person can feel guilt about our past. A person can feel like a failure. And if they feel like they have been productive, of course, they're going to feel a sense of pride and a feeling like they have really made their mark on the world, and they have really left, left something or memories for others to find. And this doesn't just happen with your job. I mean, it can happen with your children. People leave marks in many, many different ways. Um, Life goals are obviously, what they want to have achieved. If a person sets out to do specific things, they want to look back at that time in their life and feel that they did live a just life and that they were successful. So thank you very much. That's a little bit about Erik Erikson.